And welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the 2-Point Conversion NFL DFS podcast, breaking down the Week 7 DraftKings action. You got 14 games overall, 10-game main slate on Sunday. We got a little London action we don't get to enjoy on the main slate. In order to break it all down, my co-host, as always, you can find him on Twitter at Pater_DFS. James, how we doing, man?
I'm pretty good, dude. I'm not too bad today. Basketball yesterday was not great, and I didn't actually have time to play today, which is kind of a bummer. But, I mean, other than that, feeling pretty good. How are you?
Good. You know, it's funny in a weird way that this is being our second year doing this, and I kind of know the way you like to do your lineup block and everything. And then when I was messaging you earlier about the start time, I started realizing, well, he didn't play the first big slate of the year. Like, because he's not near his computer. I was like, he didn't play.
Yeah, man, and it's weird, but I just kind of, man, I've had so much kind of like free time to figure out how I want to approach things right now because I've had so much freedom, and I ended up locking myself into building optimizers for each different sport. So, like yesterday, it took me until 20 minutes before lock to finish the NBA optimizer because let me tell you, multi-position eligibility is a bitch when it comes to trying to sort things out towards the end of optimization. So if anybody out there is considering doing that, it sucks. It sucks. Yeah, I've just been, I don't know. I just ran out of time today. Like I've been busy and I just ran out of time. I'm going to have things built tonight, but yeah, it's weird not to play the first slate.
Nothing wrong with that though. There's many more to go. And you know, there are other priorities in life besides DFS. So it's all good there. Let's break down this slate. We were kind of chatting beforehand. There's a lot of unappealing games on this slate, so this might be one of the quicker podcasts we do. We'll kick it off with Thursday Night Football. Denver at the Arizona Cardinals. Cardinals are 2.5-point home dogs. The total is 40.5, the lowest total on the slate. This is a rough one, I guess, showdown purposes only. But, you know, really, let's just break down these games as if you're playing regular DraftKings. If you want to throw a showdown wrinkle in it, you can. If not, again, follow James, follow myself. We can help you with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, man, this is a really, really hard game to talk about because both teams are just so bad. And, like, neither team really has a dependable quarterback, and both offensive coordinators suck, and both defenses suck. So it's like there's going to be ways to attack this game. Obviously, David Johnson is in play. He has been in play for weeks now. They're actually starting to utilize him the way that he needs to be utilized. And you can continue jumping on that. I think he's basically like a must-play if you're doing the showdown slate. But, man, it's really hard. Larry Fitzgerald has been really bad. Christian Kirk is still young, and I'm not quite ready to trust him. I do want to brag about Ricky Seals-Jones last week, getting all those targets back, and that worked out. That is one of the few things that worked out well for me last week, having my first 0% return of the season, which is always brutal. But Ricky Seals-Jones is good. So it's just hard. The Broncos are not well coached. The Cardinals are not well coached. And I just don't want any part of this unless I'm playing showdown, in which case you play both quarterbacks, you play David Johnson, and you move on.
Yeah, that's pretty much the way you do it, showdown-wise. Yeah, I want nothing to do with the main slate. Like, if you're looking at showdown, Philip Lindsay's actually been getting some run. If you need the Denver side of things, he's the kind of pass option head in that backfield, so I don't hate that at all. Josh Rosen, as much as you hate him, has actually looked better and better each week. Air yards have improved. Showdown-wise, I don't hate it. But, yes, DJ is a must-play. I don't understand. Like, every weekend there's hate every time he scores. It's like DJ was a horrible play. I'm sorry. But he's gotten over 20 touches in 3 straight games. We preach volume. There's all these guys, and I'm not pointing to you because we're on the same page on DJ, but there's a lot of people out there starting to join the defense doesn't matter movement, and they're claiming volume is more important than the defense they're facing, the DVOAs they're facing. Yet they don't like David Johnson, who's getting over 20 touches, which you can't name more than like 4 other or 5 other running backs in the entire NFL that's getting that on the regular. I don't understand that. But and I know not all touches are created equal. I get that, but it just kind of is weird to me. And then the only other thing is Fitz, RSJ, and Kirk. They're in play with Rosen, I would say, especially Kirk and Fitz, because they're both getting about 20% of the target share, which is way more than was going on before. The air yards have increased with these guys. So there is something to look at in that respect. But, yes, not a lot to like here unless you're playing showdown. I prefer the Arizona side of things. I even prefer their defense because the Denver O-line is beat up. I think they're going to get a lot of pressure on Keenum on Thursday night. All right, let's go to London. An early start in London, Tennessee at the LA Chargers. Chargers 6.5-point favorites in this one. Total is 45.5. You know, some London games, you really don't know how it's all going to play out. If you got to take some stabs at things, I want nothing to do with Tennessee, so I'll be completely honest with you there. I don't trust anything with Mariota. They got sacked 11 times, and I know Bosa's not going to be back this week, but that Chargers defense, they had a lot of pressure on Baker Mayfield last week. A lot of pressure, surprisingly. So they're not as bad as people think. You know, there's darts there, but on a 14-game slate when you have to play Tennessee at Chargers, no. Now Rivers is definitely in play against this Tennessee team. Melvin Gordon only went up to $8,400. He's still way too cheap for what he gets. Literally, Todd Gurley is the only running back better than Melvin Gordon. And don't even at me. There's no argument to be had there, in my opinion. So MG3 at $8,400 is outstanding. Keenan Allen's workload continues to get better and better because they're using him out of the backfield and out of the receiving game. His blow-up game is coming. Other than that, the two Williams, they're like trading weeks. If you can figure it out and knock yourself out. But it's Rivers, it's MG3. If you want to sprinkle Allen, sure. If not, don't worry about it. It's not on the main slate. What do you got on this one, James?
Yeah, you hit most of it. The only thing I am going to at you and say that as far as fantasy running backs goes, Melvin Gordon is top 3, but it is first Todd Gurley and then.
Let me guess the second. Yeah, I was going to say Saquon. I'll hold an argument with.
You got to say Saquon because that dude.
I can respect that. His team's hot garbage around him, so I'll give you.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. Like he doesn't get as many red zone opportunities, but God, he is good.
Yeah, I misspoke. I agree with that. That's fair.
But you nailed most everything, and the Tyrell Williams thing was super tilting, man, because I had some Mike Williams last week, and then Greg Allen that guy is so dumb. Like the reason why Tyrell Williams had an incredible game is because they kept running the exact same defensive scheme against the exact same personnel grouping, and every time that it would happen, Philip Rivers was just like, "Oh, I see this," and then he would send fucking Tyrell Williams on that post and up. And that's all that he had to do. Like, you look at the next-gen stats on his routes, and it's literally just 4 post-up patterns. That's it. That's all he ran. And 2 of them went for touchdowns, and 1 of them went for 43 yards. Like, what are you going to do when – I don't understand how that guy has a job. I just don't get it. But, yeah, it's tilting. You nailed most of it. I don't think I need to mention anything else. The Titans suck. I'm tilted. I had a lot of Corey Davis last week. I even had a lot of Deion Lewis last week, and they did literally nothing. That team is really, really bad right now. Somebody needs to get fired, and I don't know. But they're really, really bad. I will probably go back to Corey Davis next week. I know that he's going to catch 3 touchdowns on this London game, but I'll go back next week. I got to take a break from him.
Yeah, I just want nothing to do with Tennessee. If they go off, that's fine. Corey Davis is a specimen. Like, he's really, really good, and he's going to have those big weeks, like you said. It's just that's a GPP thing. If you're mass entry in a tournament, sure. But if you're limiting your action, I want nothing to do with these guys.
He led the team with targets with 4.
Yeah, that's how bad it is. That's my point. They're not throwing the football. They're not doing anything. Everything they're doing is just a mess. It's just bad. Cleveland at Tampa Bay, first game on our 10-game main Sunday slate. Tampa Bay 3-point favorites. Totals 49.5. One of the highest totals, if not the highest total on the Sunday main slate. Everyone's talking this game up. James, what are you liking?
Surprised the Tampa Bay is only a 3-point favorite at home against Cleveland. Like, that seems – I mean, I know that people, like, especially public bettors, are kind of all over Cleveland right now, but I don't think that Cleveland is the better team or even close to, like, a 3-point spread. But, I digress. I'm not a sports bettor. So, I'm fine with this game. Baker Mayfield is going to be hella chalk. I think that people are going to go to David Njoku as the main option to pair him with. I think that's probably going to be the most popular, and that makes sense. David Njoku is probably still too cheap with what he has done with Baker Mayfield. But I'm going to go back to Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry had 9 targets last week and turned it into 11 yards, which is you have to try to do that. And especially considering his ADOT has been good this year, you know? I mean, I'm pretty sure his ADOT is up there at like 9.5 yards per target. So for him to only get 11 yards on 9 targets, that's some egregious things, and regression will come back his way in a big way. I think people will be off of him. I think people will go to Antonio Callaway. I think people will go to David Njoku, like I said. But Jarvis Landry is still number 1 option in this offense. And $7,300 really isn't that bad. On the other side, Mike Evans at 7,700 is pretty nice. Godwin, he got that cheap touchdown last week. We talked about him on the podcast as well. He's still only $4,600, and we know that this Cleveland defense sucks. Like, I talk about defense doesn't matter a lot because I don't think that it does. But there are certain things that, like, if Greg Allen is going to be your defensive coordinator, they're going to give up big plays because they don't cover the field right. Like, they run like one cover robbers and just have one safety back to try to defend the entire field, and then their corners get burnt. It's so bad, dude. So this game can definitely go off. I like both sides. I think you have to have a little bit of exposure, but my main exposure here is going to be Jarvis Landry and Mike Evans. Cleveland, with their running back situation, I did notice a lot of people talking about Duke Johnson over Carlos Hyde, and I'm willing to hear your thoughts about that because I don't really know how to attack that situation.
Yeah, I was going to bring him up. Duke at 4K is relevant to me in this game, especially if we imagine the game script is kind of a more of a shootout game. He's going to get a lot going on there. He had 5 targets, 4 catches for 73 yards. He's each week taking more and more snaps. I think he actually outsnapped Carlos Hyde last week. They're starting to really go more towards a Duke and Chubb setup. Hyde's still getting his, but not nearly what. Like, I watched a lot of that game last week, and it was very clear that they're trying to change things, and this is why they gave him a 1-year deal for cheap. I have a feeling they ran him into the ground early. They got Baker comfortable, and pretty soon it's going to be the Duke and Chubb show. And Hyde might have his Frank Gore moments from time to time, but I really think that we're going to see a lot more Duke Johnson at a 4K in a PPR format like DraftKings in a game that could be a shootout. I think it becomes very relevant.
Yeah, I think I'm okay with that. I don't know. I had quite a bit of Hyde last week.
So did I.
I mean, it sucks, but like it is what it is, and you can't predict when they're going to change things up. You can ask Alfred Morris owners from the Showdown slate. It can be hard. So yeah, I think I'm fine with Duke Johnson. It's still not a situation that I love. Like, it's not like a Nyheim Hines situation or a Tarek Cohen situation where he's still averaging like those guys still average like 6 or 7 carries, but also get 6 or 7 targets. So I'm not quite there on the Duke Johnson train, but I think that he warrants consideration at least this week.
Yeah, because Hyde and Chubb had 0 targets, so it was all Duke Johnson for the backfield targets, and should definitely be watched there. I agree with you. Baker, I think, is a really, really good play. Watch his health, but I think he's going to play. He's going to be fine. We know Tampa Bay's offense is horrific. He's going to be chalky, like you said, though. Pick your poison there. I looked up Jarvis Landry right now. His ADOT is 10.5, so things are still just fine. He had 9 targets, and he had 2 catches for 11 yards. Not much is going to go right there. Him and Baker just haven't been on the same page, but the biggest thing to me is the target share is still there. He's still getting the targets. Yeah. It's not like they've gone away from him like other offenses you've seen when transitions happen. So I'm not as concerned there. I think Njoku at 42 is still too cheap because each week the target share goes up. Each week he's facing a defense that seems to be worse against the tight end. Tampa Bay is just really, really bad. They've just been just gouging points to the tight end position this year. They're sixth in fantasy points, 6th in receiving yards, 3rd in receptions to tight ends, and 3rd in targets to tight ends this season. It's really, really bad when it comes to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense. The interesting question is, we can discuss this if you want, but Antonio Callaway, his hands are horrible. He had 2 catches for 9 yards, but he had 10 targets still, second on the team only to Njoku. He had 130 air yards. They were going deep to him. His ADOT was 13. He was the most targeted wide receiver. They were going downfield to him. There were so many throws that if he catches in stride, he's gone. He could have like a 3-touchdown game. So I think he's going to keep going deep to him. And then Damian Ratley at 3,600. This guy is bad, but value-wise, it's interesting because he also had 8 targets. He had 6 for 82. They're spreading it out to the point here. And I think if you want to be different, if you're going to play a chalky Baker and even a chalky Njoku, there's other options to go with in this receiving core. What are your thoughts on Callaway and Ratley?
I really like the Ratley call. I do really, really like the Ratley call, especially at his price. And nobody will have him. I think the lowest people will go is Antonio Callaway, but they don't have depth at wide receiver right now. Like, all of their wide receivers are on IR, and even Callaway was kind of beat up a couple weeks ago, So I really like the Ratley call. I do think you can stack up this game. I don't have any problem stacking up this game. It's not like Atlanta last week. I didn't think that Atlanta Tampa Bay last week was the spot to kind of build around, even though it ended up doing great. I didn't think that it was priced low enough for me to really be interested. And I thought that like the chalky pieces were the parts that you needed if you were going to build. But in this game, I think that you can build differently. I think that you can get really weird with these spots because Cleveland does spread it around and because they do throw so far down the field. Like, I mean, they had 3 wide receivers with an ADOT that was like over 10. So I think that you can definitely stack up this game. I like Ratley a lot. I like Antonio Callaway. Yeah, I like those spots. That's good catches. Damian Ratley especially. I'll have a lot of him, I think.
Yeah, I think he's a great value play, especially in GPPs. On Tampa Bay side, Jameis. Djax is interesting because he's $5,800. He had 9 targets, tying Chris Godwin for the lead of the team last week, 77 yards on 4 catches. His air yards were 180, and his ADOT, James, was 20. Like, Deshaun was getting looks for some big plays. And for an explosive receiver like that, that's what you're looking for. So Jameis is trying to get on the same page with them. I like that a lot. Chris Godwin, like you already mentioned, at 46, and then O.J. Howard at 36. But I think Djax is a very interesting play if you want to bring it back from the Tampa Bay side or stack the Tampa Bay side. Last question on this game, and then we'll move on. Ronald Jones was the talk of the town last week. He goes nowhere. Peyton Barber got a lot of love. He had 4 catches for 24 yards and a ton of carries. He's only $3,800, James.
Dude, I hate this running back situation a lot. I don't like they talk about Ronald Jones and they used Jacquizz Rodgers in the passing game, and then last week he literally was nothing. And Peyton Barber had 4 targets and caught all 4 of them. I don't know, man. I don't think that I will want exposure to them necessarily because I have no idea how they're going to split it. But Peyton Barber, it was Peyton Barber season a couple weeks ago. Like, I tweeted it. I agreed with ADHD. Like, it was Peyton Barber season. Then he didn't take advantage of it, and I don't know how they're going to split it. So I don't want any exposure there, but I think you can have some low exposures if you want to take the shot.
I could save this one for later on the end of the podcast, but I'll just ask it now. There's 2 running backs at $3,800, and you probably don't want either, but if you have to pick one, because I've already had people show me lineups with either or of these guys in there. You have Peyton Barber at 38, and you have Frank Gore at 38, who's sadly getting way too many touches. Yeah,
it's neither. I mean, I would rather – if people are making that decision this week, then I need to pay up at running back. That's all.
I'm going to get to that at the end of the pod. I already made my 3 lineups, and all of them are paid up, but that's another story. All right, let's go on to the next game. Carolina at Philadelphia. Philadelphia 4-point home favorites in this one. Total is 45.5. It's a very interesting game here. You can look at the Philly defense if you want, because if they can get pressure on Cam, it rattles him big time. Cam's always an intriguing play because of his legs. Even like he's putting like 25-plus points up every week, and they're not even pretty games. Last week was ugly, and he still got it done. So if you want to go there at 59, you can. Not really looking there. There is one value receiver if you need him. If you want to punt on Carolina, it's Torrey Smith at 36. But not in love with this game overall on that side of the ball. I do like the Philly side in this matchup. At home, Carson Wentz keeps looking better and better as he comes out. You know, I believe it was Thursday night when he looked great, but only $6K for Carson Wentz. I'm a big fan of that as he continues to get healthier and healthier. Alshon Jeffries has just been an absolute machine in the target side of things. It's nuts in his 3 games back. He's in play for me at $6,300 as an option there. And then obviously Zach Ertz. I'm all about paying up for tight ends or for running backs, and I'm all for paying up for tight ends like we talked about last week. Njoku, I love at 42. If you don't want Njoku though, Ertz at 71 will differentiate you in a big way. He had 9 more targets last week, 7 for 43. Jeffrey had 12 targets, 8 for 74. It's been absolutely bananas what they've done. Jeffrey's been back for 3 weeks now, and he's got 29 targets. Only Zach Ertz has more targets than Jeffrey with 34. So those are the 2 big pieces in that offense. That's just stating the obvious there. And Jeffrey's got 319 air yards in his 3 games since his return. So I like those 3 guys really good. It's a stack I can get behind. There's affordable pieces around it, especially in the receiving core, to make it work. But not a ton in this game, except I don't mind a little Philly stack. What do you like here?
So I'm a Panthers fan, but I love stacking the Panthers in DFS. And the reason why is because you can go, especially now, you can go Cam Newton and Christian McCaffrey and get everything that you could ever want out of a stack. And you don't even have to touch wide receivers, and you shouldn't at this point. I mean, they have Torrey Smith, they have Curtis Samuels, they have DJ Moore, they have Devin Funchess, they have Greg Olsen, they have Ed Dixon. Like, they have so many wide receivers, and Cam Newton isn't really a volume guy, you know? Like, he's going to throw it deep, and they're going to try to get him to run, but he still puts up fantasy points. And Christian McCaffrey has a price downgrade this week. He is only $7,700. It is less than he has been for the last 3 weeks. I'm so on board with going like Cam Newton, Christian McCaffrey, bringing it back with Alshon Jeffrey and Zach Ertz, because this is one of those spots, and you hear me talk about it all the time with condensed offenses. And these two offenses are very condensed in what they actually want to do. Like, we know that Cam Newton is going to get his in this offense. We know that Christian McCaffrey is going to get 8 targets, and we know that Ertz and Alshon Jeffrey are each going to get like an average of 10 targets. So I really like stacking it up that way, and bringing it back with 2 Eagles players and having those 2 Panthers players. That's the way that I look at this game. Other than that, like, it was kind of rough for the Eagles defense a couple weeks ago, and then they got to face the Giants, and now they probably feel better about things. But if you want to take a shot on the Eagles defense, 2,600, I like that too. I think that's fine. Cam Newton does give up sacks because he moves around so much, so that's something that I look at week to week, is how many sacks a team will give up. And at 2,600, I'm willing to take my shot on that as well.
All right. I don't mind it. Yeah, we do love our Cam CMC action on this show, so don't mind that at all. Let's go to the New York, Minnesota at the Jets. Jets 3-point home dogs. Total is 47. There is some value to be had on this one, James, if you need it, but what do you like here?
Yeah, so the Jets have looked pretty good, all things considered, but they've been really boom or bust. I think about the Titans 2 years ago, where Mariota would either throw for 5 touchdowns or he would throw for 1. That's kind of been what we've gotten out of the Jets this year, and that makes sense with the wide receiver options that they have. They have their 2 burners and Quincy Enunwa, who's been beat up, and I think that drop in efficiency has really been related to that hand issue. So I worry about the Minnesota side of things with the running backs. I can't touch Dalvin Cook until I know that he's healthy. Latavius Murray was great last week. And I tweeted that it was maybe Latavius Murray season, and then it was, and I didn't play any because I had a whole bunch of Carlos Hyde. But, you know, here we are. We can't dwell on decisions like that. Adam Thielen at 8,600. He's probably worth it because he's a god. Stephon Diggs at 7,200 is probably the better play in GPPs because I do think that he has the big play upside. They run Thielen. Thielen's routes aren't really conductive of like those huge plays unless he turns them into big plays. So I probably like the Diggs side a little bit more. Looking at the Jets wide receiver core, like they're all beat up. I think that Javon Curse might be popular this week, and I can see why. But I'm probably not going to be taking any backup Jets wide receivers. Like, if you're a backup wide receiver on the Jets, I probably don't trust you in my lineups.
All righty then. Yeah, for me, I do like Adam Thielen quite a bit. What he's doing is just absolutely bananas. So $8,600 for Adam Thielen is a lot to like there. No doubt about it. When you want to look at the other guys, I agree the Diggs call could be very interesting from a GPP type play. But, you know, the Jets side, Darnold's interesting at 49, but I don't think you need to go there. What I do like is Jermaine Kearse at $4,100. He's done this before. We've seen him in this role. He's taken the Enunwa role, which gets a ton of love, and he absolutely
You are breaking up a bit there, sir. It seems that we have maybe lost Bubba. Maybe. But while he's out, I can say that Jermaine Kearse is probably a good play in cash games. I think he's probably fine. In GPPs, we'll have to look at his ownership. I do think he's a good play for the price, though. I will say that. We've been talking about him for a couple weeks now, and his targets And if he's going to be getting anywhere between 6 and 10 targets, I think he's worth play at his price point.
James.
Hello.
Hi, where did I leave you off?
You were getting into Jermaine Kearse being a good play because he took the Quincy Enunwa role.
Okay, sorry. That was weird. All right. So, yes, Jermaine Kearse, I do like him quite a bit just because we've seen him do this before. He came in and got double-digit targets last week. Enunwa was getting just worked there from Darnold. So I can definitely get behind that in that situation there at $4,100. But other than that, there's a lot of value this week if you need to go there. If not, no worries. Let's go Detroit at Miami. No total yet on this one as it is officially Brocktober Part 2. Somehow they won last week. I have no idea how, but here we are. And there's a lot of cheapness in this game. I really don't want much to do with this game. Stafford's cheap. Tate, Galladay. Galladay at 6K is a great cash game play because he's just as consistent as they come. And then Marvin Jones is only $4,900, which is very, very odd. When you look at the Miami side, Albert Wilson's going to be chalky, but he's only 4K, so I get it. Like, he's one of the top targets in the last few weeks, especially last week for Brock. Grant's 35. There's value here.
Yeah, so I just don't want really any part of this game because I think it's going to be super slow and low scoring. Like, Detroit they play faster at home when they're on turf and when they're on their home turf. And when they're on away games, their pace drops pretty dramatically. And then Miami has been one of the slowest playing teams in the league this year, and I can't imagine that they play any faster now that they have Brock Osweiler at quarterback. So I kind of just imagine this being like kind of a slobber knocker and not being a very good game for fantasy. Like, I can see some deep shots being taken, but if you look at what Albert Wilson did last week, it was pretty much luck that he scored both of those touchdowns. Like, it wasn't that he got super good targets. It's just that he was able to do what he did with them based off of like some broken tackles. So I'm not going to go back to that train. I'm going to avoid this game entirely. I can see taking a shot on Galladay at 6K. Like, that price is nice, but I don't think that I want anything in this game.
I don't hate that call at all. New England at Chicago, one of the other high totals on the day slate. Chicago 3-point home dogs. Total is 49.5. What do you like in this one, James?
Man, if I'd have told you a couple weeks ago that this would have been one of the highest total games on the slate, like with Mitch Trubisky at quarterback, you would have called me insane. But they've been playing pretty well. They're taking deeper shots. They're playing better. I mean, last week, obviously, they got shredded by Miami, which, whatever, dude. Like, the NFL is crazy. And Khalil Mack did actually miss practice today. So if Khalil Mack is out, then that gives me more of a reason to want to play Tom Brady in this New England side. You guys know that I never worry about breakout or blowouts. Like, I'm totally fine stacking up the Patriots here, but we have gotten back to a point where everybody is healthy for them. So we now have Chris Hogan, we have Josh Gordon, we have Julian Edelman, we have Rob Gronkowski, we have Philip Dorsett, we have James White, we have all of these options, and we know that this offense gets spread out. So I think as far as fantasy goes, this game isn't very good for it. You can take a shot with Josh Gordon if you want. You can play Gronkowski any day of the week because he's a monster. But I don't think that I want to actually play them in DFS this week. I just like watching Tom Brady be fantastic. On the other side, Allen Robinson is questionable. That's a little bit worrisome, but it is what it is, man. I'm sure he'll be fine by the end of the week. If he's not, Taylor Gabriel is going to be an incredible play. And I just don't know if I'm ready to trust Mitch Trubisky being really, really good. You know, like I don't think this is going to be a 43-40 end like it was with Mahomes. So I'm probably going to avoid the Chicago side of things, but I guess we'll see how the week goes.
Yeah, this is going to be a really interesting game. It's a high total, and I think a lot of people are going to like the Chicago side because they see that New England defense. And, you know, Trubisky's cheap. Cohen's gone off for 2 weeks, but people need to realize that Cohen's doing that in like 10 to 12 touches a game. That's not sustainable week to week. It's pretty awesome. Don't get me wrong. But it was cool when he's like 4,000, not 5,100.
Yeah.
A-Rob at 61 is always a great target. We talk about that time and time again. And I do like Taylor Gabriel, even if A-Rob's out, because for 2 weeks now, he's shown to be that clear number 2 that gets close to double-digit or more than double-digit targets a game. And at $4,700, it is some very nice value. There's a lot of good mid-4K guys that you can play this week. I love this New England side of things. I think Tom Brady at only $6,100 is crazy cheap. He is like 25 points or more most weeks so far this year. So I love TB at 6,100. The backfield situation is interesting with Michelle and White. You don't need to go there if you don't want to, but they're both in play as they're both consistently good, getting multiple touches, tons of touches each. But I think Edelman at 66 is outstanding. 7 targets last week, 4 for 54, found the end zone. He's been a double-digit point machine week after week after week. And then Josh Gordon, every week his workload's increased. He had 9 targets, 5 for 42 last week. He had that big touchdown the week before. His ADOT's been over 10, and he's leading. He led the target share last week at 26%. I think people are going to go there in a hurry. So I think the play's Edelman at $1,000 more just to be different. But Tom Brady, Julian Edelman, Josh Gordon, I really like that New England side of things. I think it's going to go overlooked a little more in this matchup. Not completely because it's New England, but I think most people are going to go to Chicago facing that New England defense compared to New England facing that Chicago defense. And I think that's where you could definitely separate things.
I do want to say a hot take really quick. I think that Josh Gordon will be a mid 8K wide receiver by week 12. I think that he's going to be just like Randy Moss 2.0. I totally have bought into that. The dude is a freak and has been with a terrible organization for years, gets to play with the GOAT. Like, I just think what we're seeing right now, we're seeing him get acclimated to the offense. He's obviously gained Tom Brady's trust, getting the most targets last week. Like, man, it would be hard for me not to go really heavy on Josh Gordon this week. Like, I said that I don't want stacks, and I don't, but I want a lot of Josh Gordon because I think that I just think he's the real deal. I think he's going to be explosive, and I think he's going to set, like, some things on fire, dude.
Yeah, well, I have no problem with that at all. I think he's going to be great. Bill Belichick had nice things to say about him this week, which is hard to find Bill Belichick too.
That's wild. That's wild.
Yeah, he was really pumped on him, and when that gets said, you really got to pay attention. It's like we said a while back when Aaron Rodgers was speaking about certain receivers. You listen when Belichick says something, okay, that stands out. And you mentioned the rapport with Tom Brady. That's big. That's the same Aaron Rodgers type thing. So I agree with you. I think this kid's a freak athlete. I tweeted it out today after the Belichick comments. I said, isn't it ironic that the Browns basically proved how bad they were by not being able to handle Josh Gordon, where he's been with the Patriots now at 3 or 4 weeks. We haven't heard one peep about him at all in any negative light at all. It's just like Browns, you couldn't screw this up any worse. Baker and Josh Gordon right now would be disgusting facing Tampa Bay this weekend.
Oh, yeah.
I digress. Buffalo at Indianapolis, kind of an interesting game here because as long as the Colts, who are where did I put them? They are 7.5-point favorites in this one. Total's 43.5. Derek Anderson is starting for Buffalo. It's an interesting game because as long as Andrew Luck wants to keep hucking it all over the field, he's relevant. Now, $6,200, give me $6,100 Brady more often than not. But Luck is intriguing just for the fact, like I said, he's throwing it everywhere. Marlon Mack got like 18 carries last week at $4,400. This week is intriguing. But Chester Rogers, likely chalky, $4,700. He had 9 more targets last week, only 3 for 54. Got bailed out by the late touchdown. But in his last 3 weeks, he's been a top 25 receiver each week. He's had double-digit targets in 3 straight weeks since T.Y. Hilton's been out. T.Y. Hilton's going to be out again this week. Chester Rogers at $4,700 could be chalky. I think he's a cash game definite play. He's a value GPP play just for the upside in this matchup. That total's low, but it shows the Colts are going to put some points up. So I don't hate it. Ebron again, just some play because of the way the tight end position is. You can't hate on it. He had 7 more targets last week, 4 catches for 71. If you want to get different with the Colts, say you're using Andrew Luck and you don't want to go Ebron, you don't want to go Chester Rogers. Zach Pascal, he still had 7 targets last week. He had 5 catches for 35. He's still getting a rather large chunk of the target share. He is like the third option in that offense, and his ADOT was 12.4 last week, and it's been double digits every week since T.Y. Hilton's been out. So he's another option you can look at. He's super, super cheap. On Buffalo side, I'm going to say it. You did it. LaShawn McCoy at $5,600. I'm buying in now, James. For the volume, that's ridiculous. And in this game, with Derek Anderson literally just getting picked up off the wire, they're going to use him. So this is a really good play for me at $5,600 against a Colts defense that has holes in it, obviously. Other than that, Benjamin's cheap. Charles Clay's cheap. Derek Anderson's going to look for every safety valve, every big target he can find out there. But I think LaShawn McCoy is going to be the biggest target at $5,600. So that's where I'm looking at in this game. What do you got, James?
Yeah, I mean, I can't see a way that Buffalo thinks their game plan is going to be anything other than just give LaShawn McCoy the ball, like, a lot. I mean, give LaShawn McCoy the ball, give the running backs the ball overall, you know, because, like, Chris Ivory is still getting his carries. Like, he got 6 carries last week. He got 14 carries the week before, and those were both with LaShawn McCoy having good volume. The thing is, this Buffalo team does not want to pass. They do not want to pass. They know they suck. They know they have no explosive wide receivers. All they're doing is just trying to, like, run the ball and run out time and make this season go by as quick as possible so that they can try to rebuild. Like, they've shown that they're not going to pass the ball. So pass catchers are completely off the table for me for the rest of the season. But LaShawn McCoy at 5,600, that's too cheap because we know what he does with 20 to 25 touches a game. Like, we know that he should be a mid 7K wide receiver, or mid 7K running back if he's going to be getting those touches. So he's too cheap here. On the other side of the ball, I can see this being the lowest passing output of Andrew Luck's season so far. I can absolutely see it because I think that they're going to play. I think Buffalo is going to play really, really slow. I think that like cuts down on passing attempts overall for the other team. And then I think that Indianapolis can have a lead for a decent part of this game. Like, if you look at Andrew Luck's game log, right? Like, yeah, you see all of the passing attempts, 43, 59, 62, 40, 53. But you also see that 31 down there. And that 31 was one of the only games where it wasn't something where they were coming from behind. They played Philadelphia, they sucked, had to come from behind. They played Houston, got into overtime from behind. Played New England, almost tried to catch up from behind. Played the Jets, 42-34. Like, all of these games have been them trying to come back. And I can see a spot where he only throws it 30-something times, and that drains everybody's equity in this offense. So I know that Chester Rogers is going to be chalk, and I think he's a really good cash game play, but man, do I think he's a damn good GPP fade this week. Because if Indianapolis gets out to a lead, they don't want to pass. They don't want Andrew Luck's arm to fall off. I think that we see maybe 30 to 35 passing attempts from Luck here, and I think that it's all the running backs for both sides of the ball.
So Marlon Mack at 44. I was bummed to see the Colts for $3,300. I am intrigued by the Bills at 2,300. What's your thoughts there?
Love it. Love it. The Bills have been good. Like, I used the Bills last week, and I stacked the Texans and still used the Bills defense.
Yep.
Like,
they're too cheap. The Bills are one of my – I have 3 plays at 2,400 and below, and the Bills are one of them. There's definitely some cheap defenses today, so I'm glad we're on the same page on that one. All right, Houston at Jacksonville. I already mentioned to you how I felt about this before we recorded, but Jacksonville 4.5-point home favorites. Total is 42.5. Hopkins is too cheap. That's all I have, James. What do you have in this one?
So Jacksonville shouldn't be favored at home against anyone right now after just getting mincemeat, like, destroyed by Dallas last week. That was so dumb. Defenses don't. It was a great weekend for defenses don't matter. It was a great weekend for that camp. DeAndre Hopkins is really, really cheap up against a Jacksonville defense that we know doesn't matter. Like, I just worry about all these injuries on the Houston side, man. I can't actually stack them because Watson is walking around with like half a rib cage. DeAndre Hopkins has like 12 things on the injury report every week. Will Fuller and Kiki Kote both have hamstring injuries, so Will Fuller can't be played until his hamstring's healthy. Like, this game looks like it'll suck. But I do have interest in Blake Bortles because of how much he has been running. Obviously, they didn't have to do it last week because, last week was so weird. But I do think that Blake Bortles will continue to be a good fantasy quarterback, even if I think he sucks. I think that he's worth a take in cash games at the very least, even if you don't want to pair him with anybody. At 5,200, that's just too cheap. So I like Blake Bortles. I like DeAndre Hopkins. I like nothing else about this game.
Do you hear that Watson has 2 broken ribs and a collapsed lung?
Yeah, dude.
That's what he was playing with last week. That is ridiculous.
Why did they not tell us? Why on earth did somebody think that it was okay not to report that this dude is playing with like a collapsed lung? Like, you You can't go through the week. You can't put somebody on an injury designation and literally just say, oh, it's his chest. Well, what about his chest? Oh, it's just his chest. Like, don't worry about it. He'll be fine come game time. He has 2 cracked ribs and a collapsed lung, and you're not going to fucking tell anyone? Like, I would not have stacked Houston last week had I known that the quarterback had a collapsed lung. I'm really, really mad about that. Like, the NFL needs to do a better job about injury reporting overall, but especially for things like that. Like, he shouldn't have even been allowed to play, much less I'm really, really, really mad about that.
Yeah, they're worried about player safety and letting that kind of shit happen. Unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. Saints at Ravens. Ravens 2.5-point home favorites. Total is 50. The highest total in our game. The Saints have a total of 50 on the road, not in the dome. All the narrative street is out there, James. What do you like on this one?
Did you say Baltimore is the favorite in this game?
Baltimore is favored by 2.5 at home with a total of 50.
I'm fine with the total of 50, I think. Like, Baltimore's been throwing a lot, and they've been more efficient this year, and New Orleans is obviously New Orleans. But, like, they should not be favored at home. Baltimore gets, like, 3.5 points against the spread just for being at home, and you're telling me that on an even field, Baltimore is only 1.5 points worse than the Saints? That's egregious and dumb, and that doesn't make any sense. Yeah, this game is going to be, like, huge, huge, huge for DFS purposes. People are going to play Joe Flacco, which is hilarious. People are going to play John Brown to the fucking gills, which I'm fine with. I'm going back to it because he burned me last week, and there's no way that I'm taking that laying down. Drew Brees obviously set the record last week for most passing yards in history ever. That's really cool. Happy for him. This game is really, really tricky, though, because I think that the way that you do it in GPPs is you play Alvin Kamara and not Mark Ingram, because I think people are going to be they're going to fade the hell out of Alvin Kamara because he got a week off last week. Let me tell you how hard it is to touch the ball 30 times a game at the NFL running back level and then, like, continue that pace. Like, they don't want to waste Kamara early in the season. So, of course, when Mark Ingram gets back, they're going to give Alvin Kamara a break. They're going to play some other guys that aren't going to be that important because they're leading by 30 the entire game. Like, people are going to freak out about the Alvin Kamara thing, and I think he's probably a pretty good play in a vacuum in GPPs. I think that he's overpriced, but I think that if you're going to have some exposure to this game, I think that going Drew Brees, Alvin Kamara, and bringing it back to John Brown is really, really sharp and like a good GPP strategy.
Yep, I don't hate it at all. I think Kamara is a very sneaky play because I think most go to Ingram at $5,900, and I think if this is kind of the 50-point total they're saying it's going to be, Kamara is going to have a big part of that action. So I'm all for it. Flacco at 54, I've seen people say they're going to play him in cash. Not saying it's like he's not going to go off, but that's just wild. The running back situation is tough there. Allen at 45 could be okay in a PPR setup. I think there's other places I'd rather go there. I do like the John Brown call. It was frustrating, only 3 targets. Air yard of 53, still their air yard monster. His 8 out was still 17.7 last week. So they're giving him what he wants. But the real take-home story the last 2 or 3 weeks is Willie Snead and Michael Crabtree. Snead had 10 targets last week, 7 for 60 with 123 air yards, where Michael Crabtree 9 targets for 6 for 93 with 142. And Crabtree has been a machine for the Ravens the last couple of weeks. Flacco's really starting to get it in with Michael Crabtree. So Crabtree at 51, I think, is really good value. I think Willie Snead at 4K is sneaky if you're going to really game stack this. I think he's going to be value, and no one's going to play him at just because he's Willie Snead in general. But also revenge narrative, everybody. But I think those 2 guys are really interesting. I agree, John Brown, no one's going to want to go back to him the way they got burned. But Crabtree at 51, especially more cash game-wise, kind of like Chester Rogers. Snead is sneaky at 4K, though, because the last 2 weeks getting a ton of targets in this offense, and a ton of targets down the field to keep an eye on there. But it's a weird game. The other caveat I don't mind, at home, Baltimore, Breeze outside. Baltimore's defense, $2,400, has my attention.
Yeah. I was going to mention the Ravens defense. I mean, they got hella sacks last week. I know the Titans suck.
11 sacks. Give me 4 or 5, and I'll be fine.
At 2,400, yeah, they're a pretty good play. I actually think the Saints defense is pretty good at 2,200 as well. If you're looking at cheap defenses, because the thing about Joe Flacco, right, and the reason why people say that he's a cash game is because, one, the efficiency has been better this year. Like last year, the efficiency was just awful, and he really like he did deserve to have some touchdown regression coming this year with as many passes as he throws. Like that's fine. I get that. But if you look at his game logs, like he can throw it 50 times and still only get you 13 fantasy points. Like he's not somebody that's going to be like, he's not Andrew Luck, you know, he's not going to throw it 50 times for 5 touchdowns. He might legitimately throw it 50 times for 0 touchdowns and 248 yards. Like I don't know. I like this game. I think I'm fine with it. I love the Crabtree call. I've kind of been warming up to him over the last couple of weeks, but I haven't been really like acting on it. And I think Snead is fine, but I think that it might be a little bit thin. If this game doesn't go the way that people want it to go, if the Ravens defense shows up and it ends up being a slobber knocker, like an 18-21 game or something like that, a lot of people are going to get burned. A lot of people. And I could totally see that happen.
Yeah, that's why, like, out of all we have 2 49.5 and a 50. The highest total I want nothing to do with. Like,
yeah.
An outdoor game in Baltimore, I know it's still only October. I still don't want anything to do with that. It's not happening. All right, Dallas at Washington. Washington is a 1.5-point favorite. Total is only 41.5 on this one. There's all kinds of factors. Like Dak's played well the last couple weeks, but he's back on the road. He's played better at home. Cole Beasley's $3,900 after his big game. People are going to love that. I think Zeke at $8,100 is outstanding. Absolutely love it. He's getting over 50% of Dallas's offensive touches right now. It's insane. Washington's been okay against the run so far this year, but I still think Zeke is a special player at $8,100 that I can definitely get behind. Other than that, with Washington, I need to see who's healthy. I'm like, Crowder's healthy at 45. There's validity there. Alex Smith, probably not going to go there at 51. There's other options I like. But I really like Zeke in this game. That's about all I like. A total of 41.5 should be a kind of back and forth. A lot of field goals, maybe a few touchdowns. I think Zeke at 81 is a great play this week. What do you like in here?
Not much, Bob. I don't like much in this game. This is I don't know. There's just so many question marks on it, and Vernon Davis is still catching touchdowns somehow. And I don't know. For fantasy, this game doesn't seem very good. Like the only spot that you can really go is Zeke. I think this is another situation where you can probably go like the same thing that I said with Carolina. I think you can go Cam Newton and Ezekiel Elliott and probably soak up like the majority of the offense. I don't think that you need to play Cole Beasley, who has like, there's no way I'm chasing a Cole Beasley ceiling game. Exactly. Like there's no way I'm chasing a Cole Beasley ceiling game. So I'll fade most of this game. I can see liking Dak and Zeke together, but Washington is a train wreck as far as the way their targets are sent across, and they don't have any good, like real good playmakers. So this is a full fade for me. I like both defenses. I think they're too cheap. But yeah, I probably like the Dallas defense and the Dallas players a little bit more.
All right. Last game on the 10-game main slate, we got the Rams at the Niners. Niners almost pulled the upset off at Lambeau. And this doesn't seem right, but everywhere I'm looking, that's what I'm seeing right now. The total's 52.5, and that's what it is. The Rams are 11-point favorites in this one. That is correct. So we do have this is our highest total on the game, but still seems a little different. What's your thoughts on this one?
An 11-point road favorite?
Yep.
Dude, that's like the Pittsburgh Steelers were 13-point favorites going in to play the Dolphins last year, I think.
How'd that work out?
They lost. Or close. Like,
yep.
I don't remember how it went off, but I know that Le'Veon Bell
I'm pretty sure they lost, or it was a last-minute win for Pittsburgh. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a really close game, like a really close game, and it was low scoring and it was hilarious. Yeah. But the Rams, yeah, I mean the Rams are an incredible team, and there's no Cooper Kupp, so I don't know. That's probably the most important thing about this game is that Cooper Kupp is out. So that means that we're going to see Josh Reynolds if he's healthy, maybe Hodge. I don't know what wide receiver is going to come in, but whatever wide receiver it is between Reynolds, Natson, and Hodge, you want to play them because like that is the value of this slate. There is probably no other piece of value that I would want more than a value piece that is going to be taking Kupp's role in an offense that is designed to just attack the defense over and over and over again. Like I have a lot of confidence that third wide receiver is going to put up at least 10 fantasy points. And you can at me if they don't. I like this game for stacking purposes, I guess. Brandon Cooks and Robert Woods are both priced appropriately. Either one of them can go off. I really like I even like the San Francisco side if we know who's healthy. Jared Goff at 6,600 is kind of meh, but CJ Beathard, he throws the ball a lot, man. Like a lot. And it's a home quarterback with a high total, and he's only 4,800. And like, how can I not like that? That checks off all the boxes that I have. So I do think that you would have to be weird with it though, right? Like you'd have to do like CJ Beathard, Marquise Goodwin or George Kittle, and then bring it back with both wide receivers for the Rams. Yep. Because I think there'll be too many people that play Beathard, Goodwin, and then one of the other team. Like I want a little bit more than what people are willing to go on this spot.
Yeah, no, I think both receivers for the Rams at 71 and 7K. I like Woods a little more than Cooks, but I think both are really good. Cooks more the big play threat. It's kind of like, Thielen and Diggs. It's kind of these are the two pieces there. I like Woods more, the consistency factor that I like to build lineups with. I think Breida at 53 is interesting. They're actually saying he's practicing for once in the middle of the week, which is nice. Beathard, I like your call there. Goodwin popped off, but a lot of big plays there. Like I like Goodwin a lot, but remember, Garcon was still the heavy targeted guy. Kittle got his. Goodwin just had the big plays, like Albert Wilson, like all these other guys. He's obviously better than them, but just keep that in the back of your mind that this isn't going to happen every week. I do really, really like Todd Gurley at $9,800. I know that seems silly because Todd Gurley's great, and he was 10K last week and smashed, and he's $200 cheaper on the road against the Niners, a worse defense than Denver, I believe, but defenses don't matter. But I think Todd Gurley is absolutely insane at $9,800. I made Todd Gurley is in all three of my lineups, and Todd Gurley and Zeke are in that combo is in two of my three lineups. And you could still get a lot of stuff in there with some of the value out there this week. So I just like that kind of comfort zone at running backs, the way running back position and timeshares are going. I think Gurley at 98 is outstanding. I agree with everything else you said. There's a lot to like in this game.
Yeah, and fading Todd Gurley is going to be terrifying this week because he will be high owned. I mean, he will be like up there. And I got burned bad by fading Julio last week, so I'm not sure that I can fade another 40% owned elite player. That burned pretty bad last week. So
yeah, because if they go off, you're just screwed, absolutely screwed. So it's tough. Like I say sometimes on other podcasts, is just differentiate elsewhere. That's all I can say. And sometimes you just got to ride the ship as much as it sucks.
Yeah.
All right, go to Sunday Night Football. This should be another good one. Got flexed in. It was supposed to be Rams-Niners. Obviously, Jimmy G not there. They flexed out. It is Bengals at the Chiefs. Should be a fun one. That Chiefs-New England game did not disappoint us at all, James. This week, Chiefs are 6-point home favorites. Totals around 58.5. Both offenses are playing really, really well. What are you liking on this one?
I like the under. I'll say that first because I don't think that Andy Dalton is going to go into Arrowhead and do well. Andy Dalton's always kind of been a guy that's better at home. We can see it in AJ Green's receiving numbers. We can see it in kind of the offensive numbers overall. He just kind of struggles when it comes to playing on the road. And I think that kind of has to do with the fact that Marvin Lewis isn't really a very good coach. And Andy Dalton just kind of I like saying that he crumbles under pressure is the wrong way to say it. But he's not good at making adjustments at the line. Like, Phillip Rivers is very good at making adjustments. Tom Brady is very good at making adjustments. Andy Dalton's not. So it's hard for me to say that I think he can do well here. Patrick Mahomes is a god. Like, there's nothing about it. He's a legend, and he's, like, the next best player of ever. So there's that. I'm totally fine with Chiefs offense. I like Travis Kelce a lot. I like... actually, I might not like Travis Kelce because even though defenses don't matter, defensive players like Vontaze Burfict that want to actually hurt players, that matters. Like, I'm legitimately worried that Kelce will get hurt in this game. And so I don't want to play him in DFS. But I like Tyreek Hill, and I like Kareem Hunt a lot. I think that Kareem Hunt is probably the best play in this game for me. But that's, yeah, I hate Vontaze Burfict, and I just wanted to say that really quick.
No, I can echo that sentiment. Yeah, Pat Mahomes, amazing. Mahomes, $7,100. Hunt's in a really good spot. He actually got a lot of work in the passing game last week as well as the running game. Ty Freak is amazing. He killed my season-long leagues last year, but nobody cares. I think Sammy Watkins is interesting because he got lost in the he just didn't do anything last week. And prior to that, he was still getting targets and a part of the offense. And at $5,100 in this offense, I think he has a valuable piece to that puzzle. Kelsey's Kelsey, but I echo what you said there. On the other side of it, Joe Mixon should have a pretty good role, I'd imagine, as they might want to slow things down a little bit and keep the ball out of Mahomes' hand. So Mixon at 76 is interesting. Ty Boyd, we love, had a big game last week. He's in play, but I love A.J. Green. I know on the road he's not as good as he is at home, but he's still getting a ton of targets this year on the road and at home. He's been very, very good. He scored 15 or more points in 5 of 6 games this year. He's been very, very good. So I think he's an option there as well. It should be a lot of fun. This game should be really, really good and a fun showdown slate on Sunday Night Football to cap off our Week 7 action. Let's go to Monday Night Football. Giants at Falcons. This is where everyone's going to say play Eli because he's playing the Falcons. I get it if you want to. He's 5,200. He's obviously a really good play in the showdown. I get it. But it's Matty Ice. It's Julio at 84. See what Sanu's health looks like. Hooper at 42. Way too cheap in this matchup. It just stacks up greatly. And then Saquon Barkley at $8,900. I wish he was on the main slate because I would be just smashing the play Saquon button. I think it's a great week for OBJ to bounce back at 81 after all the talk this week about how he needs to shut up and play and all that stuff. This is a smash game. It's scary because you're trusting Eli Manning, but even Sterling Shepard at 54 is in a really good spot. Everyone's going to run to play Ito Smith at 38. I get it. That's value. It's there. But I think it's a great spot. The Giants side of things is definitely in play. Obviously, the Falcons are, but the Giants are definitely in play this week against a Falcons defense that is just horrific. What's your take on Monday Night Football, James?
I had my worst showdown slate of the season playing the Giants because Eli Manning just needs to be taken out to pasture, dude. Like, he really is – you watch him play – and he just looks like he's like 60 years old with a prosthetic hip. He can't move in the pocket. He can't throw deep down the field. He can't do anything. Like, he has to get bailed out by these weapons that are just ridiculous. Like, imagine still being bad with OBJ and Saquon Barkley on your team. How can you possibly still be bad? Like, all you have to do is put either one of those guys in a position to be 3 yards away from a defender, and they will break it and score a goddamn touchdown. And Eli can't even do that. So I hate Eli Manning. I hate the Giants. I think that it's a bad team and a bad organization. I think their offense sucks. On the Atlanta side, like, I don't know, man. I guess you can play Matt Ryan and Julio Jones again and again and again. Even though Julio Jones doesn't score touchdowns, it doesn't matter because the guy is like, going to set a record for receiving yards. I think I'm okay with Ito Smith. I'm not going to buy into it yet because he's touchdown dependent right now, and I think he'll be chalkier than he should be. I'd rather have Tevin Coleman. And then Austin Hooper last week scoring a touchdown pissed me off, but, I mean, here we are. It doesn't matter. Who was it that was – is it Calvin Ridley that is injured right now?
Yeah, Ridley's banged up, but so is Sanu. They both got banged up last week. Okay. I believe Ridley should be back. Sanu should be as well, but Ridley's got a better shot than Sanu, it looks like. Yeah,
I mean, if either one of them, like Sanu, I'm okay playing injured, but I am worried about Ridley because he's that big play guy, and especially lower body injuries. I mentioned it with Will Fuller. You can't play those deep play threats when they have a hamstring or a quad injury because they're not explosive enough to get separation. So. I'm probably more okay with the Sanu side of things. The only targets in this game are Tevin Coleman and probably Julio Jones and Sanu. I hate the Giants. That's just the moral of the story. I hate the Giants.
Fair enough. All right, that wraps up our 14-game Week 7 action. We'll kind of go over some positions real quick for you. I'm going to focus mainly on the 10-game slate. You can focus on whoever you want, James. Let's go to the quarterback position. Who are some of the quarterbacks you're targeting to use this week?
Yeah, I really like Tom Brady. I think at 6,100, that's a really, really nice price, and I never worry about blowouts in that kind of a situation, especially if Khalil Mack is not going to play. I like Tom Brady. I like Cam Newton a lot at 5,900. That's too cheap for the upside that he has. I want to like Deshaun Watson again, but he's not healthy. I like Dak Prescott. I think I'm fine with that. Even though he's been bad, he definitely has the upside. And I really like CJ Beathard. That's probably going to be a pretty popular play. But if people go with Flacco instead of Bethard, like I really like the leverage there as well.
Most definitely. My three main guys I'm looking at here is Brady, Wentz, and Baker Mayfield. I'll take the chalk in one of them, but those are the three main ones I'm targeting at the quarterback position. Running back wise, I already mentioned Gurley and Zeke are two that I really, really, really like. I can see the appeal for Tariq Cohen in a GPP if you need to go there. Marlon Mack at 44 has value. Same with Duke Johnson. But I really, really like the Gurley and Zeke side of things. What are you looking at the running back position?
I think Alvin Kamara is a fantastic GPP play. I don't think that he should be in your core, but I think that at 8,500 and probably low ownership, he's really, really interesting. I love Christian McCaffrey this week. He got a price downgrade, and he didn't deserve to get a price downgrade. LaShawn McCoy at 5,600, like we talked about, is way too cheap. And then you move down a little bit farther, and I'm probably okay going back to Corey Clement, even though he burned people on national television last week and in the showdown slate. He was on that pitch count, so he's pretty interesting to me. And then Marlon Mack, at 4,400, I think they touch the ball a lot. I think both of those offenses run the ball a lot in that game, so I really like Marlon Mack.
Yep, I don't hate that at all. Wide receiver, what are we looking at there?
Yeah, folks on the main slate still, I really like Jarvis Landry at 7,300. I also like Damian Ratley, like we talked about. I think that's a really, really sharp call. Both Rams wide receivers. I like Pierre Garçon, like you said, but I am a little bit worried about his upside. Moving down the list a little bit, Josh Gordon at 5,600. Like, he's going to be chalky, but God, do I think he has 40-point upside. And I don't say that about a lot of wide receivers, but that dude is a freak. And if they really did unlock him and he's, like, fixed, he's going to be Randy Moss. I'm convinced. Moving down, I'm going to fade Chester Rogers. I just wanted to say that again because I think of the low volume there. Like Chris Godwin, and I think that I'm moving away from Jermaine Kearse, but I do think that he's good in cash games if everybody is beat up.
Yeah, if you're paying up, it's Adam Thielen for me. I think he's just smashing away. Robert Woods at 7K, Alshon Jeffries at 63. D-Jax is interesting if you're stacking Tampa Bay at 58. I love Josh Gordon, as you mentioned. Crabtree at 51, definitely on the radar. Same with Taylor Gabriel. Rodgers, Kearse, we just talked about them. But then the likes of Callaway at 43, we just talked about Ratley at 36, I think are both interesting as well. And then Willie Snead at 4K, another cheapie that should go low owned.
I forgot to mention that cheap wide receiver for the Rams. Whichever one it is that we see that is starting in Cooper Kupp's place, you pretty much have to play them. Like they're gonna crush.
Yep, safety valve, 5+ catches, you'll get your value.
Yep.
Tight end position, I love Ertz if you're paying up Ebron, but Njoku's the guy. He's gonna be chalkier than hell, but I think he's definitely worth the look. OJ Howard's going to get love from Winston. And then if you want to punt the position with Derek Anderson going, Charles Clay's gotten a little more work the last couple of weeks, given multiple quarterbacks. I think he's an option at 28, but I think it's going to be Ertz, Ebron, and Njoku. I'll just pay up a little bit at the position. What do you like at tight end?
It's going to be hard for me not to pay up a position. I don't have my safety valve of RSJ this week. I think I like George Kittle so long as he gets some full practices in. Man, Gronkowski at 6K and Zach Ertz at 7,100 is weird. Like, I'd rather have Gronkowski in that situation, but I understand the volume is there for Ertz. Njoku at 4,200 is a great play. I don't hate that at all. Tight end is actually really, really difficult this week. I think that you should pay up, but I don't know, man. I think this is a really hard week for tight end.
Yeah, it's tricky. I think he's got to pay for it and take it on the chin. At the defensive position, I got Philly at 26, Baltimore at 24, Buffalo at 23, and New Orleans at 22. Those are the four I wrote down there. I like any of them that you want. I really like the idea of Buffalo in that matchup, and then Baltimore and New Orleans, either one there I like a lot. Just 2,400 below frees up so much money. What do you like at defense? Yeah,
I'm definitely paying down at defense. I could see myself using almost any one of the defenses under $2,500. The only defenses that I don't like, we'll do it this way because I like so many cheap defenses. The ones that I don't like are the Browns, the Buccaneers, and the Jets and the 49ers. I am okay with any of the other defenses there under 2,500. If I had to choose one, it's probably going to be the Ravens because I think that they are good. They get pressure, and I know it's the Saints, but I think that they will go entirely overlooked.
Agreed. All right. What are your favorite stacks of the week?
Yeah, I talked about the Panthers stack. I really like using Cam Newton overall, and I think pairing him with Christian McCaffrey is a contrarian way to do it without and it like ups your floor too. But if you don't want to use a running back in that spot, I totally understand. I think the Panthers are a really, really good stack. I think that the Patriots can be stacked if you want to take some shots. Like I think that Tom Brady and Josh Gordon is my favorite by far, but Tom Brady and Rob Gronkowski is always on the table. And then probably my third stack is going to be the Rams. I just can't see myself really getting away from that. They're just such a good offense, and you can put them together so many different ways. Nobody is really overpriced. Those would probably be my top three.
Yeah, that Tampa Bay Cleveland game with the Cleveland side of it, yes, it's probably chalky, but there's a lot to like there in my opinion. I mentioned New England and Philadelphia are two other ones I really, really like. And the Rams I like as well. So those are the ones I'll be targeting there as I start the week, but probably not too far out of there. And then my main lineup build-wise is pay for running back, pay for tight end, value at defense, and value at receiver for the most part should get you to hopefully the promised land.
Yeah.
As we wrap things up here, James, what are your final thoughts on the Week 7 action and any final words for just the listeners in general?
Well, like I mentioned, I had a 0% return last week, so I didn't cash a single lineup, and I just wanted to point out really quick that that's going to happen, and if it happens to anybody else, like if it happened to you last week, don't give up. Like, there's a reason why you shouldn't play your entire bankroll in 1 week, and that's it. Like, we play a super variance-ridden game here, and you can have all the data in the world, and you can have all the smarts in the world, and you can listen to the smartest people in the world, but nobody can predict the future. So don't let it discourage you. Just look at what happened, look at what went wrong, and just do what I did last week on Twitter. Like, look at the pieces that sank you. For me, it was Corey Davis and it was Adrian Peterson. I still thought they were really good plays. I would have done it again, but it's important to look back at those kinds of things, and you can be frustrated. You can be mad that you lost money, but look back and learn. Use it as a learning experience. And if you're not already doing that, like, put it into your schedule.
No, that's a great point. You need to go back. You need to go back and look at what won you money, what lost you money. You got to do it all. There's a lot to be learned week to week on these slates. So, good words of advice there. With that being said, don't forget to check out James on Twitter at Pater_DFS. We are at 2.conv. Thank you, Twitter. I am at BDentric, and go give us a rating review on iTunes. We'd much, much appreciate it. But this was your 2-point conversion NFL DFS podcast previewing the Week 7 DraftKings action. Catch you guys later.